Welcome to the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul Delegro, your host, and my guest today is Shelly Carroll, an enterprise account executive at Boomi. Welcome to the show, Shelly.
Thank you, Paul. Excited to be here. Excited to share my insights about sales and life and anything else you want to talk about today.
Yeah, we'll probably touch on a few subjects. The good news, this is my show, and we can do whatever we want. So, we're adults, right?
Sounds good.
But at any rate, so you kind of touched on it. Obviously, you have a very impressive resume, a lot of success in sales, and I've been in sales my whole professional career as well. So, always interested in talking to other sales professionals and what makes them successful. What are the common threads between all the successful sales folks out there, and with some do's and don'ts? So, as a first pass, you've been in sales for a lot of years. Why do you think you've been successful?
It's actually evolved for me over the years, Paul. I appreciate you asking me the question. I think the main thing is, just honestly, just being, stepping into myself, stepping into my truth, knowing who I am, understanding my audience more, understanding what drives them first and foremost, learning to listen. There's a lot of good little knowledge nuggets in there, but really at the end of the day, it's about just alignment, within myself first and foremost, and then understanding, customer needs, what their vision is, both in their personal life and then also their professional life, and getting to that, with my customers. So becoming that trusted advisor, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's truly about becoming that trusted advisor, not being looked at as a sales rep, but being looked at as trusted advisor in their industry, and, someone who can really truly unlock value, not only in their business, but in their life as well.
Yeah. You touched on a good point is, I've always said that customers really, if you sold widgets for a living, like candy bars, that's a little bit different. That's commodity items. But if you're selling solutions, customers have to respect you and like you and trust you before they'll buy from you, because they're basically putting their jobs on the line for you. In some ways, not all, and not completely, but in some ways, they're taking a risk, especially if you're a new commodity.
Right. That old adage, and this is one of the things one of my early VPs told me back in the day in my early 20s is customers never got fired for hiring IBM, right? And technology sales, right? Yeah. So or Oracle, right? Back in the day anyway, at least.
Or today, like Cisco's, the same people say that about Cisco, right?
Exactly. So when you're looking at, a technology purchase, customers are really, it's many times it's millions of dollars, especially when you're looking at annualized contract, annual recurring revenue, and the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. They've got to, not only look at the product, but look at the team, look at the person that's helping them unlock that value, and put a level of trust, not only, in the product that they're buying, but also in the person and the people behind that organization. It's truly imperative that you become that trusted advisor and, align, with your customer to kind of understand what it is they're trying to accomplish. And of course, aligning with those executive goals, those ivory tower goals, if you will, to succeed.
Yeah, you raise a good point. Is I've done I don't do this all the time, but I've done it in the past. When you get a new customer and they buy from you, and you go through the whole process, I've asked them flat out, "Why'd you buy from us?" Right? What were the reasons? And it's nice to hear that feedback of, hey, you made me feel comfortable. You brought the right technique, whatever you're selling, right? It's always nice to get that feedback.
Yes, for sure, Paul. It is good to get that feedback just so you can better yourself. I think over the years, at first I probably didn't quite understand why they bought, or I thought it was more of a product differentiator. But at the end of the day, what my customers have told me more and more is it's really about, unlocking additional revenue for the company, or reducing cost, or helping them mitigate risk, right, for the organization. A lot of times too, it's about personal promotion, right? Helping your customer with their own personal transformation within the company and their personal goals. I've heard all of that feedback and more. And I think when a customer really signs a contract with you, they're endorsing you, as that rep, as along with the company. So understanding that is so valuable to understanding who you are as you kind of step into that next opportunity and you're facing that new customer, as to how you're selling, how you are, really not, I shouldn't say selling, but how you are positioning transformations, for your customer, right? How they're unlocking that revenue, how they're mitigating risk within the organization, and then helping them align with their key executive stakeholders to, showcase how not only your product is doing that, but how you, as a person and the team behind you, is doing that, really gaining that trust as that trusted advisor. So the paradigm shift is not, this is Shelly, my sales rep. This is Shelly, my trusted advisor, who is a business partner in alignment with me.
Shelly, you raise a good point, right? I mean, we've all done it. We just go in, someone says, hey, I need a quote on something, and you quote them. Right. But in theory, you're really not doing yourself or the customer any favors by just quoting and selling them something.
Yes. Right. That's right.
Yeah. So, the question, I always try to back up and say, hey, look, what are you trying to accomplish here? And normally if you're involved with the customer, you'd know this ahead of time, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get, you just get blindsided by something and, you got to ask the questions, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the key, right? So when I was a junior sales rep, I probably talked a lot more than I actually listened. That's what my VP back in the day said. That's why we have one mouth and two ears, right? So listening and stepping into that discovery, right? Understanding not only, holding a discovery call with your key executive stakeholders, but then also, understanding their 10K, right? What are their corporate objectives and their goals? Listening to their annual reports, understanding, reviewing their press releases, right? Whether it's about the specific, use case that they're calling you in for to solve for, or, the company vision as a whole. I think the more you show up prepared and you really understand the customer's objectives and goals, the more you align with that customer, and the more honestly you start to differentiate yourself from the competition, right? The other quote unquote commodity, that because they see technology a lot of times as a commodity. There's multiple LMS systems, or there's multiple ERP systems, or there's multiple integration platforms that can solve these customers' needs. So the more you understand, kind of value in, value out, right? The more you understand their key objectives and you're in alignment with those key objectives, not starting from a product perspective, but starting from how can we solve this business issue with you, right? And having those key discovery, type conversations, collaborative conversations, not only with your key executive stakeholder, but with others, both on the IT side and the business side as well. And then moving forward with a business value assessment, if you will, as a part of your delivery and a part of your, proposal offering down the road, of course.
You got me thinking, there's not a lot of good sales training classes out there. So we kind of learn this over time, right? You're a senior level salesperson, been doing this a long time. So, you've kind of honed your skills. I've learned some serious, one of the biggest lessons I ever had, I was working on that was in my 20s, and I lost a deal, but I never really engaged with the customer. And they're like, oh, you're in good shape. I'd shake my hands and go away. Now I'm to the point, like, I want to flush out all the negatives. If they don't trust us, if they don't like our solution, let's know up front, right? Let's get that out of the way so that, we can know where we stand versus guessing at some point, right?
Right, 100%. Understanding, I think, too, just in that discovery process, kind of understanding, one of the things I always say is get to the know fast, right? Yeah. And that's in business and in life. Time is a non-renewable resource, right? It's our only non-renewable resource, and it's our most important resource, more than money, more than it's as important as our relationship connections, right? And so as you go through that discovery process, really understanding what is it your customer's trying to achieve, and whether or not in full transparency and honesty, you can actually meet that need, right? Standing in your authentic truth about not only what the company, both your products and services can do to fulfill this need, and then move on to to a more valuable opportunity that's going to return that, that value to you, right? And spending that time energetically where it's important, right? In business and honestly in life as well, right? Who wants to be dating for 20 years and never get married, right? So you want that out. Maybe some people do in this day and age, but you want that outcome, right? So
yeah. No, great point. And sometimes we're all, as salespeople, we want to do everything, but sometimes saying to a customer, look, that's not one of our core competencies. We don't really do that. We don't do it very well. I can point you in the right direction. So you're still that trusted advisor, but you got to learn how to say no and say, look, we don't do that. Because we've all learned those lessons, but you sign up for something that you can't deliver on, and then you get yourself in more trouble in the end.
Right. Exactly. That's what I always say. And I've had a couple of customers like this over the years. A large Fortune 500 company actually out in Florida, one of the largest global manufacturers of technology. I sold a very large enterprise asset management solution to a couple of years ago. But before I actually engaged in that opportunity, they had reached out to me for a very specific ERP solution that my company at the time that I was at, this mid-market ERP solution, we did not have. But I knew someone and I knew a great product that was a market leading solution. And I pointed him in the right direction. And literally within 6 months, he called me for a very large workforce management and enterprise asset management opportunity. And it became a multi-million-dollar project. So it was something that I passed on, and we could have force fit something, but it just wasn't in my integrity, quite honestly. And leading with integrity is one of my key, affirmations in business and in life. And I just wanted to make sure that I was giving him the right information and passing him to the right person, and then saying, okay, what can we do? And I let him know, obviously, what our core competencies are, because I knew those were in his bailiwick as well. I knew I'd have another chance, at bat. And sure enough, one night on a Friday night when he was getting on a plane in Miami to Dallas, he actually called and said, hey, I'm flying in. Can we meet on Monday morning for coffee? And that's how I got that opportunity. So,
no, you touched on a great point. I tell young people, it's gone are the days where you work 30 years somewhere, right? So we know we're going to change jobs in the course of our careers. You can only take one thing with you, Shelly, and that's your reputation, your integrity, right? So if you compromise those at a certain point, that follows you, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is one thing that I really, multiple things, but that is one thing I really pride myself on, is just leading with integrity, right? And being authentic with the customer, just being who you are, because at the end of the day, it gets exposed anyway, right? And so in business and in life, you truly just want to lead with integrity and be honest about your products and services, and customers will show up, and they'll remember too. I hate to say it, but in this day and age, a lot of people don't necessarily do that, or they can mislead, or they try to force fit maybe something. They maybe have a half-baked solution, and at the end of the day, the customer says, hey, I remember when this sales rep, Shelly, trusted advisor, right, came in and told me that their company doesn't do it. However, we do the following things. And next thing you know, because of that baseline level of trust that we established, a little bit earlier on, Paul, I mean, we were able to, I essentially closed one of the largest deals, in my sales career. So you're exactly right. It's super important.
Yeah. No, obviously having been in sales, this is music to my ears, but I think of all the aspects of selling, I think trust is, in my opinion, is the biggest one. The customer's got to trust you to know that you're not going to steer them wrong. And the other thing too, Shelly, when the what hits the fan, they've got to know that you're going to belly up to the table.
That's so true. Both as an individual and as a company as well. I've worked for a particular company in the past that had a kind of a record, honestly, of kind of misleading customers, a smaller entity earlier in my career. And I learned a lot during that time, and it was diametrically opposed, to be quite honest with you, to my, my core values, right? And so I ended up leaving that company. But I will say this, that at the end of the day, if you stand in integrity and truth and alignment with who you are, and you show up that way, for your customer, you end up being that trusted advisor. So just by being honest out of the gate, right, with what it is you can and can't do, with what it is your products and services can and can't do, and then honestly just aligning and ensuring that your team is communicating along those same lines. Even if a product is in development, they call it ghostware, right, where you're in development and it's going to be GA and June 30th or July 31st or at the end of August, and
Right.
being honest with your customer. I mean, obviously getting into a pre-sales motion with it, but then allowing the customer to test that product out to ensure that it's going to meet their needs. Being as transparent as you can so that they actually can kind of test drive the car, if you will, right? Even with technology where it makes sense. And not all products at the company I'm at now, we can't obviously test drive all of them, but certainly with this large Fortune 500, they needed to do that, right? To ensure, visibility into their partner network, their global partner network, one of the largest semiconductor companies on the planet right now. And it's a core initiative for their business. And we were able to deliver the product in terms of allowing the customer to test it out prior to spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars with us, right? To determine if it's going to receive the value, the return on value in terms of, increasing revenue that they think it is. So that's very important. I agree with that. Yeah. That's one small example though.
Yeah, no, that's great. How do you feel about, so to me, you're just one person, but you got to surround yourself with good people. What's your take on that? And let's go negative on this. What do you do if you're working with people that don't have the same values as you?
That's an interesting one. And I honestly have struggled with it in the past. My younger version, in my younger days, I did struggle with trying to understand, how to navigate that, right? Because I want to stay in integrity, and I always did stay in integrity. But when you are working with people that maybe don't share your core values, or they're not necessarily aligned, I think showing up as representative of if you understand who you are internally, right? And that's come with, learning meditation practices and prayer and understanding my truth as I actually just turned 50. I can say that on here. So turned 50 last August, and just, understanding who you are as a person. And then in standing in those core values and those core goals and not deviating from it to manipulate a situation or to manipulate an outcome, but to truly stand in your authentic truth and communicate with customers. And with folks around me in the past who maybe tried to I've had in the past, I won't name any names of course on here, but I've had in the past a couple of different VPs that tried to basically take, what I created and kind of sell it as their own internally for self-promotion, right? And those kinds of things. There's a lot of dynamics, political dynamics that you have to learn to deal with. And for years, there was one particular role in VP where I didn't speak up. And then I finally was like, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speak my truth and say, hey, I'm accountable for this. I'm the one who has, obviously it takes a team, it takes a village, and being humble, aligned partner on that team so that your team is strategically moving in the right direction together. It's so important. And when they're not, I think having those candid conversations and having them align, with your truth or basically not, right? And I think when you show up as an example, other people will reflect that back to you, right? Whether it's integrity or truth telling with the customer or, whatever it is. And just in showing up in integrity, truth, the customers pick up on that. They really do. Yeah. They pick up on that energy. And, they're not going to spend millions of dollars with you if you don't show up in your authentic self, in your authentic truth. It's one of the things at my company is it's, be brave, be you, and then be boomy, right? So be you, right? Show up as your authentic self. Don't show up as me. Don't show up as you, Paul. Don't show up. I mean, you show up as you, but others trying to emulate how Paul does it or Shelly does it isn't necessarily going to work for them. But showing up as your bright light, your energetic self, and being able to just be authentic with the customer, I think is so important. And like I said, customers pick up on it, Paul, and so does.
Yeah, no, you'll only be able to fool them for so long, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So how do you feel about, sales is kind of as being an individual contributor. The older I get, the more I want to kind of give back a little bit and help people that are up and coming. And I look at the mistakes that I made, and I'd like to pass that along. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's so important. I haven't always done that. I've mentored people over the years, just people that have reached out to me, other reps, junior reps that have come to me for many years. I've actually mentored a ton of junior reps and helping them. But even with LinkedIn and social media and really kind of as I stepped into my truth, I decided, I need to start really sharing more about how it is that I'm aligning for success, right? And not, like I said, positioning sales, but positioning transformations and having those conversations. So what I tell, last week I had a couple of different reps reach out to me and want to put time on my calendar to understand, how to achieve success, not only in their next opportunity that they have, but sustained success with customers and, in their own lives. And it's really about understanding who you are in alignment with that. And then being able to have, important conversations that are vulnerable with the customer, understanding what it is they want to achieve and helping them. So when I've reached out or when other reps have reached out to me and I'm working with them, I share that. I was like, the first thing you need to do is actually just show up as you. Just be you, right? Be authentically you. And as long as you're acting in integrity and your own truth and you are showing up, to help the customer, to truly show up with that energy of, I want to help you. I want to help you succeed. I want to understand what your goals and visions is it to have more time with your kids or to get to more soccer practices or to travel the world more, or is it to get a promotion, in the company because you want to go to that next level in your career? You want to ultimately become the CEO of the company. I actually had one of my customers tell me that a few years back. Actually, he wanted to be the mayor because I was selling to the city of Houston. So that hasn't happened yet, but he is in an executive role on the business side of the house, with the city. When he was,
you got to get elected then.
Exactly, got to get elected to that. Exactly. So
Yeah.
Here's the steps you got to take, right?
Yeah, you can help them a little bit, but
I knew the mayor. I knew the mayor and still know the mayor, the former mayor of Houston. So that was I think that was where he was wanting to that was his aspirations at the time. So it was kind of funny, but yeah, truly just my take is I haven't always stepped into that role, to be just quite transparent with you, because I was so busy and heads down, hard charging formerly type A personality, which I'm actually releasing more and more of that because I've actually expanded my ability to sell as I've released that type A perfectionistic. I still am. I still definitely prepare. I do all the things I need to do to put myself in a position to win. But as I look at what is in the best interest of the customer in alignment with my company as well, what's in the best interest of Boomi, then I've been able to really expand. And I think these are some things as I'm talking to other, junior reps, and even some VPs above me that have wanted to understand, how do we replicate your energy, Shelly? How do we replicate, a successful sales rep where we just have a team of you that can be dynamic in front of the customer, have the conversations that you need to have in order to be successful and promote our products in integrity and continue to do it over and over, with that customer and then and drive incremental business, within your other customers within your territory. So that's been a key for me to kind of really learn. And that's over honestly a 27-year career that I didn't always understand in my younger days as a young professional out of Texas A&M University.
So you're an Aggie. Oh boy.
I am. Yeah.
So I'm not from Texas. You probably figured that out by my accent, but I know several people that have graduated there, and it's an interesting university. The people that go there are like,
Yeah.
they're definitely I think there's some brainwashing going on there.
There is. From day one, it's called Fish Camp, and so from day one,
Right, I've heard that.
They really establish those core values in you about Texas A&M, and it's actually a good thing, I think, and it was good for me at age 18 at the university. So yeah, it was definitely a great foundation to start my career, understanding what core values are and all that good stuff that Texas A&M promotes. So.
Most Aggies that I know are pretty proud.
I'm
of being
honestly,
an
and I
ag?
hate to say this, I'm actually a 2%er. I don't know if you've heard of that. A 2%er.
No.
It's basically an Aggie that goes and it goes to the university. I was actually very involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the athletic program and the academic side as well. Graduated with a degree in journalism because I wanted to actually be a sportscaster. That was my original goal. I really wanted to be a sportscaster, and looked at a couple of smaller markets in Victoria, Texas, and a couple of others, and actually had some job offers to do that. And
So you never did it though. You never were
no, I wrote for the battalion.
yeah.
That I was the first female sports writer at the battalion, which is the campus newspaper. So I did do that. And then on weekends, I was on a Friday night football fever show, where I would interview coaches as they went off the field. This is back in 1992, 93, and then graduated in 95 and decided, I'm going to parlay my communication skills and my writing and all of that and communication skills into sales. So, and got my, and got
So
my first
when did you get into sales, Shelly? At what age?
So I was 22. I graduated from A&M and I got my first job at Halliburton, and they had a communications department called Corecom, which was the communications division of Halliburton at the time, like an internal communications
Okay.
department that, and I got hired as a technical writer actually for Corecom. But I would go over and talk to all the Aggies, right? So the Aggie network, right? So I would go over and talk to the engineers and so forth, and the senior engineers and the VPs over within Halliburton, and about their downhill tool manuals and all the stuff they needed for the manufactured products that Halliburton was creating. And I would come back with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business, and I wasn't even getting paid to do sales. I was a technical writer at the time. That was my first role. And he converted me, and he was like, I need you to become the sales rep for this 22 person team. And so I literally would go talk to the engineers, bring back business, and it ended up being a multi-million-dollar business that ended up being later sold off. Our president who actually owned it. So, and at the time I ended up going into software sales after that, it actually started at a company called Element K, which is now Skillsoft, selling learning management
Okay.
systems.
Sure.
So I parlayed those natural sales skills and then went in. This is, like I said, 25 years ago or so, 26 years ago. So a long time ago. But that's actually how I got my start. So that Aggie network definitely helps me, Paul.
Yeah. Well, that I hear it's a quite a tight knit group.
Most definitely.
You mentioned something about the ivory tower alignment. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, Ivory Tower alignment is really about, aligning with not only, a lot of times you're aligned with a senior director, a VP, a senior vice president, executive vice president level, both on the IT and the business side. So what you want to do is really, align with those C-level executives, right? The CIO, the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, CHRO, right? From the HR side of the house. Sometimes the CEO even gets involved. So being engaged at that C level and a lot of times having a texting relationship with them is really important. And a lot of reps ask me, how do you get on that relationship dynamic with them? And again, it's really about if you're establishing value with your key stakeholder, your key stakeholder at the level that you're at, whether it's a senior director or VP level or above, they will align you with the CFO or the CHRO or that C-suite to be able to go in and talk about the value, right? The operational, the decrease in operational expense or the increase in revenue or the ability to mitigate risk, or the trifecta is all three, right? If your product or services can do any of those three things and resolve for pain, because people buy on two things, right? Pleasure or pain. And so the software is
That's it. That's in life too, by the way, Shelley. We gravitate towards pleasure and away from pain.
Exactly. Those are the only two polarities. And I tell people it's pleasure or pain.
Yeah.
So focus in. If you understand your audience and you become that trusted advisor with your audience, you can then elevate and say, hey, can you align me for a quick 15 to 20 minutes with the CFO? That it's hard to get in. A lot of junior reps will call me and say, I can't get in with the CFO or I can't get in with the CHRO or whoever that key executive stakeholder is. the chief revenue officer, for example. I think, understanding they've got a lot on their plate, their calendars are filled up, but if you have presented a business value assessment to your key stakeholder, a business value assessment includes not just a proposal, right? So it also includes both the total cost of ownership and or ROI, as well as the business impacts that are resolving for increased revenue or decreased operational expense, or, the ability to mitigate risk, like a SOX compliance issue, right? So understanding,
Sure.
like if a company just went public and they now have all these SOX compliance regulations that are on them, understanding how to solve for those first on the business value assessment, and then taking that down to your product level, right? Your technology, to say, hey, we can save you potentially millions of dollars in fines by, being able to track your customer data across disparate systems in these diverse applications. And this is how we can do it with our product, with business activity insights, and having visibility in a dashboard to that data flow across multiple products across the enterprise, and being able to showcase that. And their CFO or their director of finance says, wow, this would actually help us with audits so that we're not getting fined, we're not getting delisted from the NASDAQ. Those are huge value. That is huge value for a customer. And it also gives you the right to increase the cost of your solution, right? When you're solving for large multi-million-dollar potential risks and or driving millions of dollars of revenue, you've now earned the right to price tag your product in the millions of dollars and over a sustained period of time. So if you can prove out that value, I actually have a value engineering team, if you will, that helps me showcase those areas, and then some sub areas in those different parts. And we go very conservative on the numbers. So we're not being too provocative in terms of the numbers that we're presenting to the customer. And we show them this, and they say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we'd save $17 million a year by having a singular global enterprise asset management system with visibility to all of our assets across the organization. Or with that Sarbanes-Oxley example, for example, a compliance issue is a big one, where you can reserve the right to say, hey, this is the business value we're bringing to solve for this, to help you so that you're not being delisted, so there's no fine, so your executives aren't going to jail. Those types of things literally are very important to public companies. And so they're willing then to purchase your products and services at a higher premium as a result of that business problem that you're solving for. So that is truly the key. And that's also how you become back to that trusted advisor, right? And it's also how you get into that ivory tower. So it's a multi-purpose, multifaceted, reason to say, hey, here's the value we're unlocking for you. And we want to, continue to align with you. We are customer centric. We're focused on you as a business. Those are the types of conversations that earn your way into a 15 or 20 or 30-minute conversation, with the CFO, who's going to sign a very large multi-million-dollar contract, and not just based on, especially with the commodity we talked about, or based on, this person X or Y, or this pretty person over here coming in to sign a contract. They've got to be able to trust you, with the millions of dollars, and the value you're saying that you're going to provide to the organization.
Yeah, you touched on a good point. If you can demonstrate to them and make their decision easy, I think that goes a long way.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. If you can demonstrate that, like I said, I always present the business value assessment. So from a business impact perspective, both the total cost of ownership and or return on investment, and the period in which that return on investment is going to be returned. And I have very smart people behind me on my team, I have to admit, that help me with this.
No, we all do.
Yes, that help me with that. And then, but if you can present it and articulate it to the right key stakeholders within the organization that are purchasing, and then align that to the business impacts, right? The quantifiable business impacts of, faster time to market, right? Faster time to deliver for your customers, being able to produce X amount of more widgets, being able to serve more customers faster. Customer engagement's a big one right now, right? With the internet and I say recently COVID, it's been a few years, but that's continued to trickle and impact our society in a different kind of a way.
No
Honestly,
doubt.
in the way that we now sell, right? Via this this platform even, and not as much as not much face to face. So I had to really kind of step through that, as well, as far as transforming the way I communicated and did business, because I was just
Sure.
being in person, client dinners and all of that. So that's,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how video calls have become the norm now.
yes,
And
yes, I've sold some multi-million dollar deals on a Zoom call. And 3 years ago, if you'd have told me that, I would not have believed it, because I was all
yeah,
about, it was old school. I say old school, but old school as far as getting on a plane, going to a customer's office, taking them to dinner, all of the stuff that you do, Paul, right? In your business, working with
yeah,
customers and executives to go through the sales cycle. And now I've literally done, it's still multiple meetings on Zoom, but bringing everybody into this technology, this platform, right? Whether it's, whatever, pick your poison, Zoom or WebEx or whatever, Teams meetings, and being able to lead your team. It's a little different approach. It's definitely a different approach than in person, no doubt. There's some dynamics that you have to be aware of. And it's harder to connect with your customer nowadays, because some of them are in the office, some of them are not, right? So getting them out to customer events and being able to invest in your customer is super important. Still, I still believe in customer dinners or lunches. I do that a
yeah,
lot with both my partners and my customers, and I'm sure you do as well. Post COVID, right? So
yeah.
it's
No,
very
it's.
important.
I think we've all gotten a little lazy, Shelley, because it's so easy to just jump on a Zoom call or a Teams, a WebEx, whatever it might be. Versus you and I were raised in the era. You got to shake a hand. You got to go see someone. You got to, get to know them, get to know about their families, all that. It's a little bit harder to do that over video.
It is. It is. It's definitely harder, because there's this platform between us here, right? So there's this dynamic, and I know we even had a professional that understood the dynamics of selling virtually. Literally, and you've probably seen them. They probably emailed you and your team on how to sell virtually, because there's some nuances with virtual selling that is definitely different. It's now definitely a part of our lives for sure. But for a while
Hmm.
there, it was all virtual selling before we were able
Yes.
to really sit down and break bread and talk to our customers. So it's definitely a new world, a different world, and faster paced in terms of the cycle too. I think as far as that has been a blessing that has come out of a very tragic time in our lives, and
Yeah.
is continuing obviously with that. So
Yeah. Now I think we're all getting used to seeing our faces on video and hearing our voices and all that. Especially with this podcast, I get to see my own videos and hear my own voice. I'm to the point now I'm comfortable with it. Don't think I'm winning any awards anytime soon, but
you're an old pro, Paul.
there you go. So they say, well, this was great, Shelley. I think you've shared some great insights into what makes people become successful in sales, right? Because it's not just about selling. That's the biggest point. I hope people come out of this. It's about all the other ancillary things that go into the process.
Yes, most definitely. It truly isn't just about selling. It's about connecting, right? It's about
Yes.
internal alignment first with you, with yourself. And again, younger Shelly in my 20s and 30s, I didn't quite understand that. And into my 40s, I've really begun to evolve that as I started to have more and more success and became that top 1% performer, right, in my career. So, yeah, it's definitely extremely important to connect and to provide value based transformation,
Selling.
right? Not
Yeah.
selling, but value based transformation. It's so key
Great.
to a sales team's success.
Well, I think we'll finish up on that note, Shelley. I think there was sound advice. I hope there's some of the younger folks out there that are listening will heed your advice and you know institute some of those theories and become successful like you.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. It would be a blessing to me to help others, step into their
Yeah.
their power, and learn some of these little knowledge nuggets I wish I would have known in my 20s or 30s, to be quite honest with you. So I really appreciate the opportunity, Paul, to be here today and share some insights with
Thank.
you.
Well, if someone did want to reach out to you, Shelley, what's the best way to do that?
So I have an email, successfulleadership@gmail.com. Anyone can reach out if they're interested in me talking to their sales team, or just want to reach out for a one-on-one. We can certainly talk, and I'm more than willing to share a lot more insight into some of these areas, and even more in terms of my process and how I go about approaching customers and in just my career, and why I've had that
Yeah. Awesome.
success. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you're a great role model.
Thank you.
Continued success. I mean, you're still young, so you got a lot of good years ahead of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I truly do,
All
Paul.
right. Oh, well, that's a wrap for Business Brains and the Bottom Line. I'm Paul Delegro, and until next time.